Good morning. This is the Artificially Intelligent Podcast, where a white, cracker-ass, hunky American comedian, me, Nathan Timmel, in the white state of Iowa, speaks with his bestest bud, a African-American person of color musician in Philadelphia. That's you, Antar Goodwin.
Indeed.
It's been a couple of weeks since we've recorded. We've spoken.
Yes.
We speak off air. We are actually friends, but it's been a while since we've done this. We've been busy. I went from one side of the country to the other. I went from 1 week in Alaska, where I saw the Iditarod. I saw the launch of that. I mean, what are the fucking chances? I get booked and I show up and they're like, I think it was Wednesday. The guy's like, all right, remember your plane tickets tomorrow? By the way, you know the Iditarod's this week? I'm like, no. And it snowed when I got there. Everything was, and I mean this with all love, Anchorage, everything was kind of ugly because it was spring and the snow was melting and the dirt was, and then there was a blizzard on the day of the Iditarod. So it was like perfect. You got the dogs and the snow. It was great. And then the week after that, I went to Buffalo, New York, the other side. So I've been busy and traveling.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting.
How about you? What you been busy doing?
I haven't been busy doing anything nearly as exciting as that. I've been booking shows, and I guess the term is onboarding. We're onboarding a manager.
Nice.
And so he and I have been talking a lot. Katie was over in Germany, so we were dealing with a lot of the business end of stuff while she was over there. So now she's officially back, and
Be going on tour soon.
yeah, May really is when everything starts. April's
Nice.
pretty slow, but May is gonna be a fun month. So,
All right. Well, when I said let's record, I said I have a couple of things I would be interested in talking about. You said you had a couple of things. So let me do one that I think can just be really fast, and then we can move on to deeper
mhm.
subjects. I thought this was interesting. I have a TikTok account because I have a weak ego and I need attention. Oh wait, no, it's because I need to get my stupid face out there, and that's how you do it. Um, I posted a couple of videos over the couple of days that did nicely, and they were both pretty simple, non-political. One was about a couch I tried to get rid of on Craigslist. The other was about parking spots at Costco. Let's do the Costco one first. So anybody that's watching that doesn't know, or if you're listening, I'll try and explain it. If you're watching, you can see my hand gestures. At Costco, you can only enter the gas pumps one direction. It's not a free-for-all like most gas stations. You can only enter one way, and there are generally two pumps. So there's a number one position and a number two position. And I was in the number two position, and I finished 10 seconds before the number one position. Like, I got in my car and I saw them click off the handle and start to put it away. So I'm like, okay, they're done. I'm just going to wait, because then if both cars pull out, two more cars pull in. Well, as I was waiting, I happened to, look around, and I glanced in my rearview mirror, and the guy behind me was going ballistic. He kept doing a hand gesture like, fucking go around. What is wrong with you? Go around. And I just sat there thinking, okay, dummy, yeah, I could pull forward if you want. I could pull up back out and pull around if you wanted me to, but you'd start filling up your gas tank 10 seconds sooner. But then you'd be in the number two position, and the next
Right,
person would have to drive down the center and either back in, or just you'd be blocking it. And
right.
so I said, and my TikTok was basically, it's called patience. It's fine. And the whole reason I'm bringing this up is I thought it was amusing, the number of people that went political with it. Some people saying sounds like a Trump supporter. Some people said sounds like a Biden supporter. Well, it gets better than that. That's to be expected, right?
Is it though? Is it really to be?
In
Is that
today's day and
okay?
age,
Is
yes,
that
it is to be
okay?
expected.
Is that okay? Okay. Anyway, continue.
Well, here's where I thought it got interesting. Now, first, let me clarify. 98% of the people just took it for what it was, face value. 99, 1% or about 1% added a political bent to it, Biden or Trump. But then there were just a couple, we're talking fraction of a percent, who actively commented and said, you sound like some pussy liberal. And that's what I thought was funny. Like, saying Trump but to hear me talk about patience and kindness, and your response is to say you sound like if that is what you associate with is I agree. And there were people like, I agree with the guy behind you. Like, okay, if you look at anger and impatience as being a conservative trait, and doing something logically as liberal, like, that to me was the amusing one. And as I said, thankfully that was the smallest fraction of a
Right.
percentage But my God, and I did love your reaction to the fact that some people, immediately took it
I mean,
political.
it's it's just really sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sad state of affairs, when the world comes down to something like we talk about this idea of like if you're the guy in the let's all right, so you have number one position and number two position. Really, it's one here, and then you're behind that person.
Yes.
And there's multiple pumps, there's multiple lines, but each line goes into one thing, right? So you're here, this person's here, but behind you, there's two more people.
Well, actually, there were four. There were a line.
Oh,
So a
right.
couple of people posted. They said maybe he was in a hurry. I'm like, there were one, two, three. Like, say there were four pumps. Each pump had four stations with two. Each one had five cars in the line. There was a line here. So if he
Yeah,
was in a hurry, he would have driven up, seen the line, and gone, "All right, I'm going elsewhere."
right. But like if you consider the two people behind you positions one and two, and that guy's in position one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then the person if you wait 10 seconds, the person in position two goes, "Oh, thank God."
Yes.
And what about when that guy who's in the position number one is in position number two? Then he's like, "What the fuck? Why wouldn't you just wait 10 seconds?" He's going to be the same guy saying that. And there's something about this that it's like, when somebody cuts us off, we're like, "Fuck you, motherfucker! How dare you?" But then when we cut someone off, it's like, "Fuck you! It's a mistake. God, I can't be allowed to make a mistake. Fuck you!" It's like,
Yeah.
does
It's
it
always "fuck
ever?
you" is the
Right,
go-to.
right. It's like, wait a minute. Maybe we're all just human, and we
Yeah.
all make mistakes, and sometimes we're all in a hurry and drive like assholes, and some of us, you know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. Really, sometimes we're absent-minded and we do dumb things, and it inconveniences someone else for point 0.3 of a second. You know what I mean? It's weird,
It
but
is.
yeah, man,
Well,
it's funny.
so
Anyway,
the other one, the couch one, this one I'll read you because it just happened. It's happening in real time. I just got the response. I tried to give away a couch on Craigslist and it didn't work out. That's all I'm going to tell you. The ending is that someone steals the couch. So the comment is had to be liberals. And so I wrote,
man.
do you find it at all sad that that's the lens you view the world through?
Oh boy.
He writes back, seems to me that lens has been not forced, has been forced on us by idiots daily. I wrote, so no, fair enough. And then he wrote, Jesus, if you don't want comments, don't post. I'm an ex-Democrat. It's just a statement conservatives wouldn't steal it. And I wrote, LOL, bit sensitive, aren't you? And then he wrote, ha, caught me at a good moment. That's all. So we had a resolution, but I ignored again 99% of that one. I felt like poking the bear a little bit. Like, why is that the lens you view the world through? Like why? And then the fact that like I said, is that Jesus, if you don't want comments, well, think about your comment. It's not that I don't mind, but if your go-to is to blame the other side, especially in something as simple as giving a couch away on Craigslist, like what does that say
I
about
mean,
us?
I mean more. I mean, to the point, you actually believe that conservatives won't steal a couch, but liberals will. Like you believe that. Like
Well,
you.
conservatives usually do white collar crime. They put people out of business to increase their stock price. No, I'm kidding.
So,
That's what they do.
right. I mean, but I mean, like what he's assuming is that there's no poor conservatives. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
they're called
That
trailer
like
parks, white trash.
right, like people who are economically disadvantaged Caucasian people.
Oh, right. Sorry, I said white trash.
Right,
Sorry,
right,
cancel culture. I cancel me
right.
now.
So like people in that position wouldn't steal a couch. Like the people with the Trump signs wouldn't steal the couch, but the people with the Biden signs in that same park would steal the couch. Like that thought process is just fascinating. But the fact that people really believe that, like this gets back to we talk about this all the time. I feel like the idea of being irredeemable.
Yeah.
Like I think we talk about it all the time. It always comes up, and it's been coming up since the gay cake maker. I want to say. Like that might be the conversation that started it. Was we that? How many years ago was that?
I don't know. It seems like forever. It seems like Kaepernick. Whenever football season starts, you just hear like, "Why isn't he playing?" Oh, well, you just shut the fuck up. And it's the same thing with the anything happens with I saw this odd tweet yesterday from Marvel Studios. It wasn't the LGBT community, it was the LGBTQIAFR, like they added so many letters to, so whenever you hear about the LGBT community, it automatically goes to the Colorado gay guy. He wasn't gay, the gay baker. He wasn't gay,
Yeah.
the won't bake gay.
Right. Yeah. That's yes. That's it. The I want to look that up because it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah,
It was
it was before.
pre-pandemic.
This
It
goes
was
back
like several
years.
years ago. It was several years ago that we had this conversation, and when I see it, it is like well, I was talking to Todd earlier, and he said the stuff he said it's like a religion
Yeah,
for people who would claim to be atheists, you know? And it's true, right? Like the way that people believe, like I hear my liberal friends say things that are equally as ridiculous as the stuff that the conservative people are saying. Like what you said, there must have been a Biden supporter. Oh, must have been a Trump supporter. It's like, right, they're both doing the same thing and both calling the other person childish for doing it and thinking the other person is wrong. And it's like, what fucking world do we live in where we can't see that the whole world is just a mirror for our own insecurities? Like
yeah,
everybody you talk to is essentially just a mirror for your insecurities. And the sooner you realize that, like the sooner I realize if I'm pissed at you, it's because you're showing me something about myself that I'm afraid to look at. So I hate you for having the same quality, and that's why I'm pissed at you. Like the sooner we realize that, the sooner we also realize when you see somebody doing something that you really love and admire and you go, wow, I really love and admire that, maybe that's a cue for you to step into that ring too, right? But you don't get one without the other. You know what I mean? Like it's a package deal. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like I don't know that you get the insight without the, you know what I mean?
Well, that leads us to something I really wanted to talk about today, one
Yes,
of the deeper subjects, and it all relates. I'm not going off on a tangent. I think this is fully within the Venn diagram, if that's an appropriate phrase. I don't know what we're
sure.
talking about. Um,
For all the liberal sissies out there who understand that kind of talk.
because conservatives don't understand. Actually, they don't. Scott Walker, I don't know, the governor of Wisconsin held up, he did a placard of, and it was not a Venn diagram, but he said, but if you look at this, and then he got roasted, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, um, irredeemable, wow, I can't talk. The fact that anyone can be irredeemable. I had a moment online where, and I want to be general here because I don't want to use specifics because I don't want to call anybody out. I want to talk about the overall situation without the specific one. Had a situation where someone posted that they needed something done and they wanted to go with a novice. They wanted to go with someone just getting their feet wet in the trade, and the novice fucked up. That's what happened. And so they parted ways, and the person said, we parted ways amicably. And then I brought in a professional, and the professional said, oh, the novice did this, and this wrong. And then the person said, what? Fuck the novice. And then they found something else out and said, you know what? I'm going to report the novice and get them in trouble. And so I stepped in and said, do you really want to report them, or maybe send them a message on the side? Because if they screwed up, why don't you just say, hey, you kind of did this wrong, so you learn going forward. And they said, no, I want them to, feel the full weight of what they did. They fucked me over. And I said, but did they intend to fuck you over? Was it a mistake or was it malice? And their response was, I don't care what their intent was. I got fucked over. And that's where I ended the conversation, because I was disappointed. I was a little saddened. And I was also disappointed in the not many, but the couple of people that were liking that statement, like, oh, yeah, I like that. Because again, this goes back to what you said about cutting people off. What is intent? Do I see a car and go, okay, I'm going to cut them off? Yeah, I'm driving by you right now. Fuck you. Or is it an accident? And the thing I thought of with this person is that how you want people to treat you? And, or is this how you want people to treat your children? That if you make a mistake, and again, we're dealing with someone that wants to be a professional, a novice, that intent doesn't matter, that that vindictive, that punishment, I need to get this person in trouble, that I need to report them, that's your go-to, instead of compassion or understanding or a one-to-one conversation where you say, hey, I needed you to do this, you didn't, it's fine, but this is what you did wrong moving forward. Like, it boggled my mind that people want to think that way, and or other people see it. That's the part that I guess is that people were reading it and still liking it. Like they weren't removed enough from it enough to go, oh yeah, you know what, that does make sense. Maybe intent matters, because this goes to murder. Is it first degree murder or is it manslaughter? What was your intent? Did you fuck up? I guess all I can keep saying is that I was really disappointed in that person and the people that thought it was okay to be, I guess I want to use the word vindictive, because that's what it came off as.
Yeah. Let me ask you a couple of questions here.
I sent you that TikTok. It made me laugh so hard. Anybody that doesn't know, there's a black person of color, African American man in the closet calling 911, and he's like, "Hey, there's someone breaking into my house." And the 911 operator goes, "Okay, quick, are you black or white?" He's like, "Ah, shit, white." The guy's like, "Okay, who's the best rap artist?" Eminem. Who's the best pop star? Justin Bieber. Say ask. At, at axed, and then it gets hung up by 911, and then no, bang, and there are a couple. So when you said that was the first thing I thought, it was just so fucking funny.
There's another one, Galifianakis. He was on one of the late night shows, and he said something like, "Oh yeah, I had to stop. I smelled bad, so I stopped in a black neighborhood. I stopped in the neighborhood so I could get some Axe body spray, but I was in a black neighborhood, so I had to get Ask body spray." And like everybody was like, and the one black dude in the band just goes and just cracks up laughing. It's just like, it's so funny. I was like, damn, that's fucking funny.
Ah.
So, but
Anyway, ask
it's
me a
like
question.
it's like funny
That was a
racing.
tangent. That was an official tangent.
But my question is,
Ask body
um,
spray. Oh, that's brilliant.
like, it's so fucked up, but it's also fucking funny. It's like, fuck, that's fucking funny. Like, you're a
Especially
dick, but
when you
that's
can
funny.
hear Galifianakis, when you can hear him delivering it in your head. Just,
Yeah,
just that sort of deadpan plain, not like a Dane Cook would be like, "So I had to get ask body spray." Like would do a dramatic gesture. I just shit on Dane Cook, who's a multimillionaire, and I'm a nobody in a basement. So
clearly in a basement.
yeah,
Actually,
that
yes.
shows my petty side right there. That's
That
me
maybe
being.
that's what you should call. We should call the podcast something like that, like a bit of honesty in the title. Anyway, my question is, when she posted it, did she say that she specifically wanted to hire a novice?
I
Or
believe so. Yes, I believe she
right.
said this person's just getting started, and I figured I like giving people a break.
Okay.
I
See,
believe I remember that.
this is
Yes.
this is the problem, is she romanticized what that meant. She thought that meant they would take a little longer, they'd be a little late, they'd be a little unprofessional, but their work would be tip top and she'd save a couple of bucks and feel good about it because she's helping somebody out. What she didn't understand is what novice really means is not there yet. We're going to make mistakes and you're gonna have to watch over me and correct me. Ideally, the novice shouldn't even be out on the job without somebody else coming to oversee it, right? But this is the problem. Like, she hired a novice for something that you actually need a professional for, right? And that's actually her. She's the one that made the mistake ultimately. Because, and it is really fucked up of her to specifically seek out a person who doesn't have experience and then shit on them because they don't have experience. Like, that's actually kind of an asshole move.
Well, what you just said, I don't know if you said it intentionally or just accidentally, but it ties to what you said 5 minutes ago. The fact that you said that was her mistake. So the anger could be misdirected then. It could be,
Yeah.
I am angry at this person for fucking me over, instead of looking in the
Yes.
mirror and going, you know what? I was the one that did not seek out the best and the brightest from the get-go. That's on me.
Yeah. I mean, and it's unfortunate. I don't want to say it's a mistake because it sounds like it comes down to that fault versus responsibility thing, right? it's not like she's not an. I mean, it's harsh to say she's an asshole, right? I do think that what she did is an asshole thing. I
Yeah,
do.
and
I
not
think
again
that's an
blanket
asshole.
statements. That
I
is a
think.
bad moment in
I
her
think.
life. That doesn't
Right.
make her a bad person.
Right. Yeah. But it's an asshole move, though. I
Yeah.
think. But I do think that it comes from a misunderstanding and a
Neither one of us can talk today.
romanticization. Hmm. Yeah, but I smoke a lot of weed.
Well,
What's
I'm
your
stupid. So
okay? See, more honesty in the podcast. That's what we need.
yes, yes, yes. Where's my
but
water? Oh, there it is.
um, but yeah, like I think it is kind of fucked up because like at the end of the day, she wanted to do right and she wanted to do good, and but only up to a point. Like if doing good meant that it had to inconvenience her more than she had mentally decided was acceptable that nobody else knew. Like it's not like the person, because she might have even said to the person, I'm giving you a chance because you're a novice, whatever, and I'm whatever, whatever. She might have even had a conversation with them about this, but they're still gonna be what they are and not know the
Yeah.
things they don't know. And that's not it's not her fault for not knowing that, but she's the one that put herself in that position willfully. Like she chose it, not knowing the full ramifications of it. And I feel like, and again, I'm making assumptions. I don't know this person at all. But when I do that, which I have done often, that kind of asshole move, like take out my anger at myself on someone else for some shit that was really I could have seen coming had I actually put a little bit of forethought into it and not just the romantic version I held in my head, right? Like I'm just speaking from my own experience that that's what it is when I find myself in that position. Is like, oh right, I could have seen this coming and I tried to save $1 and pretend I was doing a good deed, or I tried to do a good deed, but I really only wanted to pay this much for the good deed. I didn't want to have to be paid this much and be inconvenienced by that good deed. And this is too much to pay for the little bit of happiness I got out of giving some young person a chance or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's too much. But the problem is that's not once you make the choice, the die is cast. You know what I mean? Like, what do you do? All right,
Well,
I don't
and
know. It's
I'm sorry. I'm gonna go sideways for what you said, and
yeah,
I apologize. But because I think we've gone sideways from what do you we've examined the situation a lot. But what about what I said? The idea of intent. I think I made myself pretty clear that that's what made me.
yeah.
How do you feel about intent? Because it does, as I said, it goes back to the fuck up when driving when you cut someone off. Isn't does intent not matter anymore?
There's a legal thing called I don't know the name actually. I won't come to me. I'm well aware of it. But the definition
Tortious
is
interference? No, wait, that was
no.
the Michael Mann movie, The Insider. Sorry.
the the it's something that means the outcome was the same regardless, right? So like whether or not you intended to do this or not, the outcome was the same, right? Whether you burnt
Yeah,
down the house, whether you were smoking and fell asleep, or you lit
dumped
a
gasoline
match,
everywhere and lit a
right?
match. Yeah,
Yeah, or just you were cooking and a grease fire got out of hand and it was just an
end result,
accident,
the house
right?
is gone.
The end result is the house is gone. And, but when it comes to whose responsibility is it to replace it, those are the kinds of things that come into play, right? So I get that. I also get the difference between what you said about murder and manslaughter,
Well,
right?
I have
Now,
another thought. When yeah, go go
right?
go, I'm just writing it down.
Which is why I think there is that thing. It's like, right, it's not murder, but the end result is still the same. The person still doesn't get off scot free, even if they didn't mean to do it. Do you know what I mean? If
Yeah,
they did something careless and it caused it, their carelessness, well, they didn't plan to end a life, but they did, and so they still got to pay, in some
yeah,
way. I think that but that's ultimately the problem, right? Like she's mad at being inconvenient, so somebody has to pay. So their intent doesn't matter because the end result to her is still the same. She doesn't care whether or not the person intended to do it. It still cost her this much more money. And the stuff that they did wrong were like glaring things that they did wrong, apparently.
yeah.
And
I'm
she's
not
like,
defending the actions of the
right,
novice. I'm just saying you hired a novice. That's
right. but again, I think that the right thing to do is not ruin that person's livelihood, get their license stripped or something. I
Yeah.
don't know what the penalty is for what they do. Maybe the person says, "Hey, this is why this happened, so let's review these things, and you got to retake these tests and do this thing so you can show that you do this again and whatever." Maybe that's for the person's best because
Yeah, it could
somebody
be.
has to point out to them that they made a mistake. I just hope that should she report it, that they get the help that they need to be better
Yeah.
rather than penalized and
Yeah.
fired and something else. You know what I mean? I don't
I
know
think it
what
all,
happens, and that's really the issue for me. You
and
know?
in my head, and this goes to what I just wrote down, it goes in the approach. Do you approach, and we'll just say the boss, with a fuck your employee, they did this fucking pissed me off, or do you say, hey, I need to give you a heads up. This is what happened. This is how how I feel about it. I mean, if you could help them not do this to another customer, it's all in the approach. What kind of
Yeah.
letter do you write? And what I wrote down was when it comes, and that's what I was thinking of, is the approach, the what you just said. I listened to the Adam Carolla podcast, and he's an interesting dude. He talked about his response to things, and I've listened to him hilariously berate his employees for fucking up something he told them to do specifically. But at the same time, he admits, and not admits, just says flat out, and he's gotten verification from his employees, like, hey, remember that time you fucked up my car? And the guy like, yeah. Was I mad? No. Yeah, because it's an accident. If you fuck something up on accident, I'm not mad. You fucked up one of my expensive Porsches, and I wasn't mad because it was an accident. But when I said do step 1, 2, and 3, and you didn't do any of it, then I'm mad. So I
Right.
mean, it's all in a,
Yes.
it's what do you understand? Do you understand the difference between intent and accident? And
Hmm.
that goes back to what you just said and what I just said.
Yeah.
It's the approach. Do you approach the boss and say, wow, your employee's the worst, fire this person because they fucked me? Or, hey, your employee needs a helping hand.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I will fully admit this. I could be wrong. But the impression I got from the post was that it was going to be a little more angry, a little more. I think they might have talked about licensing, or I don't. I don't want to read too much into it, but the from what I remember and what I read, it was a little more anger and a little less understanding, and that's why I brought it up.
Yeah. It's sad because I said all the stuff that I said, and I thought to myself, yeah, but I'm an East Coast hippie liberal, you know? And like, I'm not trying to paint the Trumpers with the broad brush because, again, you would think, and I don't know if this person that you're talking about is a liberal person or a conservative
I
person.
think they lean a little to the left. I wouldn't say they're like an AOC, but they definitely were not. I don't think they're not Trumpers.
Right. See, so what's funny is that I wonder if a blue collar conservative family with people who were blue collar workers would have treated that person the same way. Would they have seen more of that person in themselves? Like, oh, right, my sister, brother, husband, wife, father, mother, whoever does is an electrician or
Yeah.
is a whatever or is a fill in the blank, right? Would they understand? Oh, they're just new. They also might have known what you get when you hire a novice and just not hired one, right? You know what I mean? And somebody's got to be dumb enough to hire inexperienced people to give the experience,
Oh,
right?
I just
Like
thought it.
it's a catch 22, right?
I just ignored a phone call right now, and I'm pretty sure I know who it was. Our dishwasher broke, and the guy came out
Mhm.
yesterday and fixed it. And he said, run another cycle and make sure the error code doesn't come back up. And so I ran a cycle, and the error code came up. And so I called this morning when they opened. This was last night. I fixed it yesterday, or so fixed. And I called this morning. I said, hey, how you doing? And he's like, hi. And I said, you had one of your employees come out, really nice guy, worked on my dishwasher, said to run a cycle, and unfortunately it doesn't work. So and he's like, oh, well, that was me. And I said, oh, well, I'm glad I called you a nice guy. And he laughed and I laughed. But I mean, I just thought of that right now because it was definitely not like when the error code came up, I went, ah, shit. All right, got to call him. I didn't call this morning and like, hey, this fucking guy you sent out didn't fix my fucking dishwasher. What the fuck? It was just this, you know, because it'll get fixed at some point. All I
Right.
did was I literally last night when I saw the error code went, I wish that was fixed. All right. But it didn't affect me or my life. It just meant I have to hand
Yeah.
wash dishes for a couple more days. But it was interesting that I said, yeah, you're really one of your, it was a nice guy. I said to call in. He's like, oh, that was me. Like, what are the chances? But like, and we shared a
Yeah.
laugh because
That's funny.
he busted me behind his back, calling him a nice guy.
But what an interesting thing, right? Like that conversation could have gone so differently, you know, just by
If he had
one
said,
of
that was
your
me, I'm
tones.
kind of an asshole. What's wrong with you?
No, like if he was like, if you said, if when you said there was something was wrong, he got mad even after you said he was a nice guy. Do you know what I mean? Like if he was like, "What do you mean something's wrong?" Like if he took that
Yeah.
personally. I think the problem is that like they've somehow whoever they is, they've taught us to personalize everything. Like everything is about us.
I was going to say
And
personalize or internalize.
yeah, sure, either way, right? Like,
Because I try
yeah.
and like I had I can't remember what this was, but it was last week, and I've been doing this more and more. The more I pay attention to, well, I won't name who it is, my mom. Um, I
what
love
her
my mom, but
what
she's
her
very
initials are.
she's very when we go to a restaurant because I've worked in service, they're, hi, how are you? Yeah, I'd like to. My mom's just like, can I breakfast? Like she's not rude. She's just like short, like, and not short in an angry way, just she doesn't just. And so more and more, and this happened last week when I talk to people, I'm like, like Bob's Burgers, I'm like, hey Bob, how are you? Oh, fine. And I had a guy, this is where I can't remember, I don't remember who I was talking to, but he said something like whatever. I said, okay, well, thanks so much for your help, have a good finish to your shift. He goes, oh, hey, thanks. Like the tone of his voice changed. Like it went from the way he said, oh, yeah, like when I said, have a nice finish to your shit. And just the simple politeness, just the barest minimum. And I've been doing that more and more in situations. And when you do it up front, it takes them by surprise. Like when
Yes.
you say Bob's Burgers, hey Bob, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? Like sometimes it really startles them.
Yeah.
But just that initial, because I guess I mean I think people are a lot more like this unnamed person, my mom, who would just be like, Bob, I'm calling because I have a problem. Like again, she's not being mean, it's just I'm calling, I have a problem. She's being direct, not forceful, but you just add that little twist of personalization so they don't internalize. Ooh, I brought it, I combined the two words that we used.
Yeah. It's because you're a genius.
Who can't
Um,
talk because I'm stupid.
right.
What
Well,
word
that's
couldn't
how
I
it
say
works.
earlier? I can't say most words. I don't know.
I think it's I think it's interesting because I wonder,
She
like,
went,
even
why?
if
She went away. My little runaway.
haha, I used to love that song.
Del
And
Shannon.
The Wanderer. I like that song too. I thought it was
I think it's
fun
Del
for some
Shannon.
reason. Um, I feel like even if you take the words, "Hi Bob, I'm calling because I have a problem," right? And you say, "Hi Bob, I'm calling because I have a problem." That's matter of fact, but it's still actually a little pleasant.
Yeah, you had a
You know what I
little to
mean?
your voice.
Right. Or if I call and I'm like, "Hey Bob, I have a problem." That's pretty. Or but I'm like, "Hey Bob, I have a problem."
Yeah.
I'm calling because I have a problem. Right? Like there's multiple ways to do this, and we have this idea that somehow the happy one makes us weak, or not,
Hmm.
maybe not weak, but maybe takes more effort. Like it takes effort to be nice, and maybe it does. Like maybe anger is just an easier position to slide into. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe it is. I don't know, but it
Well,
seems easier,
I know that people, and this is different. I remember uh I don't want to go there. I remember being sad when my first relationship, the one that when that fell apart.
Right.
The idea that anger is easy to understand. Sadness is not. That's what I was talking about. Like if someone's crying, you're like, oh, I feel uncomfortable. That person's crying. But if someone's pissed off, you're like, oh, fuck them. They're pissed off, or oh, like anger is easy. Sadness
Yeah.
is not. And to relate that to happy, maybe it does take more energy, or I don't know. But I guess my point is anger is always easy to understand. Oh, that person's pissed off. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's just an easy, like the guy behind me at the gas station. What the fuck aren't you going around? Jesus goddamn Christ. I get it. You want to get gas. I understand that. What you don't understand is the number one, number two position.
Yeah, right. Like at the end of the day, and in his defense, you had information he wasn't privy to because maybe he wasn't paying attention. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
maybe he
Maybe he
couldn't
was
see the car in front. He just
right.
saw me get in my
Yeah,
car and not leave immediately.
right. And so he's like, "What the fuck?" Right? Because you just have information he doesn't have, which comes down to it comes down to the same thing with the novice and the other stuff. Like you just have more information than him in that moment. You have more information, and you can just make a better decision for everybody, even if it inconveniences him. He just doesn't know that. You know what I mean? And it's like this fucked up position that we find ourselves in, where it's like, yeah, it's interesting because you like unless he saw the person there and still was willing to still was like that. Like again, we come into a point where we don't have an answer to a question because
Well,
if he
and
saw that,
also,
then
I
he
mean, I
should have
doubt this
suss it out.
could be his first time at Costco, but if you've ever been there before, then you do understand, or you should
Right.
understand the 1-2 position. But then again, I did, like I said, a
Right.
small minority, maybe 3% were saying, that's why they have the center lane. Pull out, come on, speed it up. Like, okay, I speed it up for me, but then it blocks everybody behind me in the 1-2 position.
I
But
mean,
either way.
and theoretically, let's just pretend that everybody's like, for the sake of this math problem, if everybody's getting the same amount of gas, then that's just going to keep happening over and over again, and
Yeah.
it's just congestion that slows everything
Well,
down over the long term, the aggregate. You know what I
but
mean?
take
It's
that out of it.
yeah,
But to go the opposite direction, this guy was driving a truck. So trucks have bigger gas tanks. If he pulled into the number two position, he's going to fill that a lot.
right,
If the guy behind him
right,
is in a Dodge Neon, I mean, yeah,
right.
the truck is just going to be fucking
Yeah,
sitting
but
there.
right, the guy driving the truck probably works at the neon factory.
Exactly. Again, goes with another TikTok. That's why I said it, but not even go down that one.
Oh, God. No, I mean it's interesting though because like I wonder like I'm purely speculating here, right? And I'm speculating based on how I react to things, which may not be how everyone does, right? Again, when I am nice to people, every now and then it feels like a position of weakness
Hmm.
because
What was that?
a truck just went by and went over. There's trolley tracks on
Oh,
my street for some reason.
sounded like a
You
dumpster
know,
being slammed to the
I
ground.
mean, basically, it was a truck like that bounced over something. I didn't hear anybody scream, so I assume that
They're
everybody's
fine.
fine. But I feel like I mean, I think it's an interesting thing, right? Like when you come at somebody forcefully, it clearly establishes a boundary. It establishes an adversarial relationship,
Yeah.
but it establishes also that you're not one to be trifled with, right?
With,
Theoretically,
no, I agree with you. The problem, I
right?
again, only speaking for me and how I react, the
Right,
person becomes someone to ignore. Like
right.
I immediately go into like I know some people become defensive or they're like, oh,
Uh,
I have to please this person. I'm just like, oh, you're a dick. Like I remember
right,
bartending. I
exactly.
remember bartending. It was me and a guy named Greg, and we were both down at the end. There was nobody at the bar. It was dead. We were preparing for the Friday night rush, and we were filling out, and we did all our prep work. And so Greg, and this I don't want to say this because it shows how old we are, was reading a newspaper. Well, it's a newspaper. And it's the internet on a dead tree. Um, and I don't know what I was doing. I was just sort of maybe wiping glasses or just I was piddle farting around. And a guy at the end of the bar started pounding his glass on the bar. And I looked at Greg and Greg looked at me. I said, are you going to get that? And he goes, nope. I'm like, neither am I. Like, we just fucking ignored him. And he went and got a manager. And I can't remember, but it was just like, or you could have said, excuse me, like that's all it would have taken. But yeah, and my whole life, If you come at me with anger, I just be like, whatever. I'm not going to deal with you. I don't get angry
uh,
myself. I just like, I shut
I,
down.
yeah,
But a
again,
lot of people go into a different mode where they go into a fawning mode or like I don't want to get yelled at mode. So they yeah.
but I think it's one of those things where like it triggers. Like I'm just thinking about my younger self going to a bar and not getting seen, right? Aside from the fact
That's
that
because you're
I'm like,
black.
well, or that I'm 5'9" in heels.
Oh,
You
that
know
too.
what I mean? Like in heels with what is it? He's 5'8", 6'4" with the afro. You know what
Fletch.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you know,
Oldsmobile.
uh,
Oh, that was such a good line.
right?
I saw my
Yeah.
lawyer's Oldsmobile. Now I
It's
want to watch that. I think I have that sitting right here. God damn it.
yeah, it's a great movie. Great. Oh, fucking Chevy Chase at his best. Um, but I feel like when that would happen to me as a younger person, it would bother me because the reality is that I don't like confrontation and I didn't like being inconvenient. And it felt like having to say, oh, excuse me, and then flag somebody down like was an inconvenience. And so they're putting me in a position to be out of my comfort zone because I'm really an introvert. For a guy who spends his life on stage, I'm not really an extrovert. I'm an extrovert on
Lydia,
stage. You know what I
you ask
mean?
Lydia if she could change one thing about me, it would be that I would be more extroverted
Right.
because she's like, look, you like hanging out with people, fine enough, but you hit your wall, and it's like New Year's Eve. We visit with our neighbors. I like all our neighbors. I like everybody, but a couple hours goes by, and it's like, all right, I'm the
Yeah.
stimulus. Like I would prefer
Yeah.
just me time now.
Yeah. I mean, it's also because you're an artist and you're self-employed. Like it's a different life. Like there's to me there's a feeling of not I could be doing something else,
I
but
could be doing something productive.
right. And the thing about it, and it sounds like, oh, you always think about work, but like productivity in work when work is your art is fun.
Yeah.
Like even the bullshit stuff of it, like the booking shows and the rejections and the stuff, it's not fun, but it's just part of the game and you just get used to it and it sucks, right? It fucking sucks. But every day you get up and you do it again, when you get that win, it feels good. Do you know what I mean? It feels good. It's like it's a fun thing. And I don't I honestly think that people who don't work jobs that satisfy them on a deeper level don't understand what you're talking about.
I wouldn't go that far because that sounds judgmental. What I would say
True.
is because I know people who enjoy their job. They really like their job, but it's not who they are. When they
Right.
punch the
Yes.
clock, then that downtime at the bar with their friends is
Yeah.
like awesome. Whereas to me, the downtime is my brain could be functioning doing something different. Like maybe I'll
Yeah.
get a story out of this time at the bar, but maybe I won't. Maybe I could be writing or doing,
Mm-hmm.
and so I wouldn't say that but they're not, yeah, they're not attached to their job. It doesn't define them. Whereas for better or probably worse, we become defined by the fact that what we present as our work is who we are as people.
Yes.
This is me speaking through a joke. This is you speaking through your music.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. So
In an interesting way, I also think that we draw from life, you know? And so and again, it's not, this isn't meant to sound like a judgment because it's not necessarily pleasant. It just is a byproduct of what it is, right? There's a way that I feel like I absorb life. I filter it through who I am, kind of as an artist. So like, not again in some like I'm an artist way, right? But more in like a life is where we draw from, and so I absorb it in a way where it's always filtering through lyric ideas. Like somebody says something and my mind goes, that's an interesting lyric idea. Like that's how I filter it out. Like that's like there's columns where there's just conversation, And then there's columns where like it takes an off ramp to, oh, that's an interesting lyric idea. Oh, that's an interesting idea to build from, and things like that. And my guess is your brain works the same way when it comes to comedy. Like somebody says something, and you go, and you in your mind say a retort that's really funny. And you're like, oh, file away here.
Yeah.
That actually might be worth revisiting. And I think that that's how other people, like, you know, my brother-in-law's a cable tech, right? Cable technician. He's high up in it, whatever that means. He has like way like levels of certification, all this other stuff. And he looks at wires and things the way I look at conversations. You know, like he sees
Yeah.
it and he just sees it. Like all I see is a bunch of snakes. You know, I just like Indiana Jones looking down the thing. That's what a bunch of wires looks like to me. But he looks at that and goes, "Oh, there's something wrong here, here, and here. Let me just do." And I'm like, how do you see language there? Like all I see is inanimate objects, and he somehow sees language. Like he can read it, like
He's
reading
trained his
teeth.
brain.
Right. And it's like
It becomes
that.
second nature. It's not even that he's trained his
Yeah.
brain, is that you do it long enough and it becomes like breathing. It becomes
Right.
like you don't even realize you're doing it. The
Yeah.
reason I laughed a second ago, by the way, you talked about song lyrics, and I immediately picture you at a restaurant. Chicken or fish? Ooh, chicken or fish, chicken or fish. Yeah, like just
I mean, but like
no,
it's
I know.
funny,
I was just
but like,
that's just literally what popped into my head.
but
Like your brain was talking lyrics, and mine was thinking very stupid, not funny
but
joke. But
like,
like everything I,
but
and I don't mean to. It's not like I hear something and go, "How is that a joke?" My brain just
right.
spits something stupid out. Just bleh.
Right, exactly, right. It's just how it works.
Yeah,
And that's the funny thing is that when you say that, like when I think of everybody who wrote a song a day, most of the great songwriters that we think of, they spent time writing a song a day. That's what they did. And they'll all
well, and then they
say that,
throw most of them out, as Billy Joel
right.
said. He said,
Oh,
"You write
yeah.
for an hour, and then you throw that all away because all the
Yeah.
garbage is out of your system." Peter
Yeah.
Gabriel said it too. He said, "You absorb everything, and then
Yeah.
you digest it all, and then you filter it." And he said, Peter Gabriel said, "Writing a song is either like throwing up or taking a shit. You can either get everything in, then barf it back up, or you can digest it." And shit out something good. And he said, "I like taking a good shit." And I'm just like, wow, that's like
It's funny.
would not have expected that
Yeah,
from the writer of Salisbury Hill or In Your Eyes, but what are you going to do?
right. I mean, it's a valid point though. I think that really this most successful artists aren't the ones who write. They're the ones who theoretically write the best songs, but what they really are is the ones who can separate their good shit from their garbage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like when you hear B-sides, when somebody releases a bunch of their B-sides, you're like, "Oh, I get why these are B-sides. They're
Yeah.
still really good. They're
But
still
they're,
better
yeah.
than these other things, and I still love it because it's you, the artist. But I get that this wasn't this. I could see that.
Oh, and then, and I don't mean this, and well, he said it, so I'm not insulting him. One of my favorites. I love the guy, Sting, absolute one of my favorites. He even gave an interview where he said, "I used to be able to write a hit and know it was a hit, and at some point," he said, "I got too old or I stopped hearing it, and so I just let the record company pick the single." He's like, I'm going to write an album." And I remember he was talking about the song "Let Your Soul Be Your Pilot," and I'm like, that is not the best song off that album. I can't remember what album it was, but I remember that song is, it's
Mhm.
fine. It's not his best, but there were a couple other songs on that album. I'm like, that should have been the lead out of the gate single right here. And he's like, just let the record company handle it now. And I wonder if that's a thing with age where you just, I don't know, run out of steam, or I don't want to say you lose it, but Sting's talked about, he talked about his last album. He said, "I hadn't written an album in 10 years. And I'm like, can I write an album anymore? I don't know. And, I it wasn't my favorite album. I don't know. It's like, at some point, do you just lose it? I mean, look at any band that's been around forever. Even some of my favorites, U2, used to put out full albums that were just start to finish great. And lately it's been like, okay, this has a good song. Happened to the Stones too. The Stones would put out an album and just tour behind it, but then they'd play all the greatest hits because nobody cared about the new album. Any band that's been around too long, I can you think of a band that's been around 40 years that's still putting out their Foo Fighters? They haven't been around 40 years, but they still put out pretty solid shit.
I mean, I'd argue Beyonce. You know, like the people who still buy her records, and they've been buying them since Destiny's Child, and that was mid '90s.
Is
So
she does she has a team of songwriters.
Yes, she does.
That's
Maybe that's
different,
what.
I think.
And I hear what you're saying, but would you give two shits if the Rolling Stones brought in some legit songwriters and started cranking out hits? Like, you think those hits
Probably
Aerosmith put
not.
out?
No.
You
You
think when
know, I mean,
Aerosmith
if
put
a
out
good
hits in
song
the
is a good song,
'90s?
Kelly
Right.
Clarkson said that. Kelly
Yeah.
Clarkson said she tried. Do you remember when she went through that? No, we're going sideways. We
Oh
should
yeah,
start signing
no,
off. But
but
I
I
remember full well.
remember.
I remember
Yeah.
being in my car. I was in Fairview Heights, Illinois, and she had gone through this big fight with Sumner Redstone saying, I'm an artist. I need to write my own songs. And he's like, sweetie, I have songwriters. Let me do this. And she's like, no. And she put out an album and it sucked. I mean, it just bombed. And then she went back, is like, okay, I understand. And her next album like had hits again and it was a smash. But for one album, she said, I'm an artist. Let me write my own songs. And it did not work. So yeah.
I mean, I think that half the bands we love. See, there it's like I think the problem is the people who were not a generation away from the Beatles, but like a decade after or during, they have a different idea about songwriting and artistry. You know, like the Eagles wrote hits, but they also did their friends' songs. Jackson Brown wrote hits, and he also did Eagle songs for fun because they're good.
Yeah.
And then they co-wrote with everybody and did a bunch of stuff. And you know, I'm not saying the Eagles like that they didn't write all their songs because they did, but they're also a band full of songwriters, right? So it's
Well,
kind
like
of a
one of
silly
their biggest
example, but
hits,
like
not biggest, but I mean, one of the pretty in the city. Joe Walsh did that for the Warriors, and the Eagles said,
yeah,
"Yeah, we're putting that on the next album."
right,
Like it
yeah,
wasn't a Joe Walsh song for a movie. It was okay. It's we're gonna re-record it, and it's an Eagles song now.
right,
It was a
yeah,
good song.
like
They didn't care.
yeah, like right. You don't really give a shit where they come from. But I think that people who grew up, we grew up romanticizing people like the first people who wrote and produced their own tunes and had their own record labels and did these things when most of history is full of artists who got songs from songwriters, because there's people who can sell a song and there's people who can write a song, and then there's people who can do both, but most of the artists can do one or the other, you know what I
Well, and
mean?
the people that can do both, and I'm going to tie this to comedy, the people that
Mhm.
can do both, they run out of things to say. Like when you're Bono and you have been rich as shit forever and living in mansions, tapping into that youthful anger, energy, spirit, whatever you want to call it, enthusiasm, tapping into any of that becomes difficult. And Chris Rock talked about it. And you've seen comedians do it where,
Mhm.
you know, they hit this huge success and suddenly, I don't want to say everything becomes too easy, but you don't relate to the people that were in your audience anymore. You know,
Yeah,
you're in that 1%, you're in the top tier,
yeah.
and your audience is at the bottom of the pyramid. So you don't know how to talk to them and you become, quote, less funny or less interesting as
Oh,
a musician.
but I mean, I wonder if it comes down to what we were saying earlier about the way you filter life, right? Like when I filter life through lyric content, you know, I pick out certain moments in it, right? Certain moments of a conversation, certain insights that happen through a conversation, whatever it is. Those are the things that take the off ramp instead of just getting like whatever happens to the other shit, you know? But I wonder if like when you start living life differently, different things get off the off ramp. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like you just your filter is just different because filtering life through the eyes of like right now, you know, like humping gear and booking shows and doing all this stuff, like it sucks, but it's great. You know what I mean? I feel like a young man, but also I'm painfully aware of my knees remind me of how old I am relatively quickly. You know what I mean? Like the mind is willing, but the flesh is weak, right? But like I people always say they miss that, you know, when they get to the tour buses and the jets and the stuff and they don't have to worry about gear and all of a sudden it's like they snap their fingers and their guitar is magically tuned and restrung and you know what I mean? In the span it took for them to like look at somebody, another guitar gets handed to them. And there's something about the when you see life through those eyes, it is different. Like your filter is different, you know, like Not
I
that
mean,
people need to suffer, but you know, it's a different kind of suffering. Like John Mayer's suffering is very different now as a 40-year-old than it was when he was 24. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, well, and he's still dating the 24-year-olds.
Yeah.
No, the two the examples I just gave, I'll give them again. When the police went on their reunion tour in 2007, I mean, they did a documentary of it, and I watched it. And Sting's dressing room like traveled with him. It wasn't just a matter of showing up and here's the green room that the arena has. It was Sting's team would go in first and set up like drapes and Buddhist shit and candles so that he could feel at peace in that dressing room, which is 5 million miles from their first tour, where it was three
Yeah.
of them in a van.
Yeah.
Same thing
Playing
with U2.
CBGBs. Yeah.
Yeah, U2. In 1991, there was a book written about them that you and I have both read, where the author was trying to get Larry to justify the fact they had an espresso machine backstage. He's like, "Hey, we need this to get through the day." It's like, yeah, but do you? Did you need an espresso machine when you were starting out as U2? Like it.
Right.
Well, I
Yeah.
think we've gone all over the place, and we're at
We
about an
have.
hour. Have we talked everything we wanted to talk about? Because we started and then we've gone off the rails.
Um, you know, I think that at the end of the day, maybe saying this, maybe they all do tie into each other, right? Like I feel like as an artist, and again, I hate this. Like, you fuck you, goddamn liberals. Like, I hate you, motherfuckers. Even though I am one of you, it's like I say artist, and I feel like it's like
You
when you
probably stole
say
a couch today, didn't you? Did you steal
I
my
did,
couch?
I did,
And I say that
and
because you're
and
liberal, not because you're black.
and I held up a gas station line too. I did it all. But like, I feel like when I say artist, it means artist, like sensitive, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not that. It's just like, as a person who makes his living from his art, right? I feel like it is what we're talking about is a reality. As we get older, we do lose touch. And maybe that's why it comes down to responsibility in this area, right? It's not our fault that we're getting older. It's not our fault that, like, what we think is funny might be funny to a different demographic. Maybe we also need to take responsibility for that. Like Miles stayed relevant for a long time. He had a period of not being relevant, but that was because he was just on hiatus. He was just like,
Drug out. I was on
right,
heroin.
right. He's
Hiatus,
like,
heroin.
right. There you go. A different word, but three
Well,
syllables.
I think you and I might still be relevant then because we're still failures.
There it is.
We
See?
are still hungry for
No,
success and still,
right. But I
scrappy,
mean,
as opposed
right.
to,
And that's a
showing
real
up and having
thing.
the green room and playing theaters. I'm begging to play, clubs, and you're
Yeah,
starting to
doing
play
the
better.
same
So
thing.
we'll
But I
see where
mean,
you are in 3 more albums.
but maybe that is a real thing, right? Like Miles did surround himself with younger people.
Yeah.
He kept younger people in the mix. He kept older people in the mix, but he didn't repeat himself. Like he was very big on not repeating himself. I think George Carlin stayed relatively relevant for quite some time, and
Well, he
he
was
was known
relevant.
for
I'm
his
just
art.
not
You
sure
know
if he
what
was.
I
I
mean?
remember when I don't want to say gave up on him, but how do I put it? Watched him less. He was doing a thing. He did a bit about bread and how you went past the first couple pieces to the good bread. And I'm like, you're talking about bread like that. I'm just like, what are you? Are you? I think that was a middle period.
Right.
Like I think, like you said with Miles, I think he started out strong and he went through a period where and then at the end, then he was zero fucks given and he was great
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think Carlin went through the same thing where when he was talking about bread, I'm like, why are you talking about bread? And then he got it back into, and then he's really started hitting religion and politics hard. So,
It's
well,
funny. I'll say this quick story. So 2.5 minutes.
all right.
All right. So Ben Elliott, producer, did the first Katie Henry record, High Road. He was older at the time. Uh, Turned out he had cancer. He knew his time was limited, but I don't think he knew whether it was 18 months or this, what, or that, right? But I ended up making one of the last records with him. This guy Sean Chambers. It was a Hubert Sumlin tribute record, and I think Ben kind of knew that was one of his last records, and he really like you said, zero fucks given, like 11 amps mic'd at the same time. You know what I mean? That's like crazy shit, you know? And when I listen to the record, I can hear that fire of a young man, you know? And it's funny that, like, we maybe do have to go through a middle period where, like, you lose that fire, but then I think you can get it back without suffering.
Yeah.
Like, I think you just have to understand that it's still in you. You just have to stoke those fires. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the fire is still there. It's just, you don't need so much. Like, so many other people light the path for you that you don't need your own blaze to light the way. Do you know what I mean? Like, because there's enough people on your team that are helping you. They can all that all have flashlights. You know, it's like, oh right. But what if you just say, what if I'm willing to just be guided by the light that my own flame casts? You know what I mean? Instead of everybody else's flashlight, I think that you find that same fire again. I don't think it's gone. You know what I mean? Just get out and start chopping some goddamn wood. You know what I mean? Throw it in the
I
fire.
follow.
You know what
I
I mean?
follow the light of Jesus.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of passing, I don't think I told you, Lydia's my wife's father passed on Monday.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
He
I'm sorry
succumbed
to hear
to
that.
ALS. So this
Yeah,
episode is dedicated to him. Gonna miss you,
yeah,
John.
yeah. I only met
Awkward.
him. I think I only met him once.
Yeah, probably at
Like,
the wedding. That would be
yeah,
it.
but I remember him being like memorable in a good way.
Yeah,
Like not funny, but like good natured.
yeah,
You know,
very much
like
so. He was
good,
a good dude.
like a yeah, like you met him briefly and were like, "That was a good dude, man. That's a good cat." You know what I mean? And you kind of get that sense, kind of like when they say like, "I like the cut of your jib, Mister." You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
like like I like the cut of his jib. You know, like, in that 1950s way. You know? Yeah, man, that's sad.
All right.
Like,
So Katie Henry Band tour
yeah,
starting in May. Start watching for dates. We'll promote
yeah,
them as they get closer.
yeah. Festivals
You
and
mentioned High
gigs
Road,
and
but the latest album
yes,
is On My Way. Made it
is
into the
indeed.
top 10 on the Billboard
Oh,
Blues charts, which is a
crazy.
certified hit, which is fantastic.
Crazy, man.
Good reviews, getting airplay.
Yeah, yeah.
katiehenrymusic.com.
Indeed, indeed.
But if you're looking for a musical director, that would be antargoodwin.com. So that's you.
Indeed, it would be.
And if
Indeed,
you're
it
looking
would
for
be.
me, that's nathantimmel.com. And I'm going to revamp the website so that right now I think it has Facebook and Twitter. Like you can find my things. I need one of those Linktree things because, as I mentioned, I'm on
Yeah,
TikTok and I post a video a day. So if you want a daily little 1 minute snark from me, that's where it is. Still got the book out there. We Are 100, available in hardcover, Kindle, paperback, and audiobook. And good reviews across the board. I'm very thankful for that and hope it continues. And that's, I think, about all we got. So
yeah,
good seeing your face, my friend.
yeah. You too, man.
All right. Anybody watching or listening, thanks for tuning in. We'll try and do this more often than we have been.